Characteristics of abusers. If the person you love or live with does these things, it's time to get help. And there are 11. 1. Keeps track of what you are doing all the time and criticizes you for little things. 2. Constantly accuses you of being unfaithful. 3. Prevents or discourages you from seeing friends or family or going to work or school. 4. Gets angry when drinking alcohol or using drugs. 5. Controls all the money you spend. 6. Humiliates you in front of others. 7. Destroys your property or things that you care about. 8. Threatens to hurt you or the children or pets or causes hurt by biting, punching, slapping, kicking, or biting. 9. Uses or threatens to use a weapon against you. 10. Forces you to have sex against your will. Or 11. Blames you for his or her violent outbursts. Okay, so now let's talk about the warning signs of potential violence. 1. The abusers pacing the floor. 2. Clenching, unclenching their fists. 3. Making a certain facial expression like glaring. The last one is shouting or yelling. Always be conscious of your own safety needs in all interactions involving an abusive person. Do not meet privately with a violence-prone individual. If you must do so, be sure someone is available close by in case you need help. Okay, so now let's talk about characteristics. Abusers frequently have the following characteristics. They often blow up in anger at small incidents. He or she is often easily insulted, claiming hurt feelings when he or she is really very angry. They are excessively jealous. At the beginning of a relationship, an abuser may claim that jealousy is a sign of his or her love. By the way, jealousy has nothing to do with love. The abuser might like to isolate the victim. He or she may try to cut you off from social support, accusing the people who act as your support network of causing trouble. Maybe they have a poor self-image and are insecure. They blame others for their own problems. Blame others for their own feelings and are very manipulative. An abusive person will often say, "You make me mad," or you are hurting me by not doing what I ask, or "I can't help being angry." They are often abusers of alcohol or drugs. They might have a family history of violence, might be cruel to animals and or children, might have a fascination with weapons. They might think it is okay to solve conflicts with violence. They often make threats of violence, breaking or striking objects. Often use physical force during arguments. Often use verbal threats such as, "I'll slap your mouth off," "I'll kill you," or "I'll break your neck." Abusers may try to excuse this behavior by saying, "Everybody talks like that." They might hold rigid stereotypical views of the roles of men and women. The abuser may see women as inferior to men, stupid, and unable to be a whole person without a relationship. They might be very controlling of others. Controlling behaviors often grow to the point where victims are not allowed to make personal decisions. They may act out instead of expressing themselves verbally. They might be quick to become involved in relationships. For example, many battered women dated or knew their abuser for less than 6 months before they were engaged or living together. They might have unrealistic expectations. The abuser may expect his or her partner to fulfill all his or her needs. The abusive person may say, "If you love me, I'm all you need. You are all I need." They might use playful force during sex and or may want to act out sexual fantasies in which the victim is helpless. They might say things that are intentionally cruel and hurtful in order to degrade, humiliate, or run down the victim's accomplishments. might tend to be moody and unpredictable. They may be nice one minute and the next minute explosive. Explosiveness and mood swings are typical of men who beat their partners. They might have a history of battering. The abuser may admit to hitting others in the past, but will claim the victim, quote, unquote, asked for it. An abuser will be any woman he is with. Situational circumstances do not make a person abusive. Okay? So now let's talk about how dangerous is the abuser. Let us assess the lethality in an abusive situation. Some domestic violence is life-threatening. All domestic violence is dangerous, but some abusers are more likely to kill than others, and some are more likely to kill at specific times. The likelihood of homicide is greater when the following factors are present. 1. Threats of homicide or suicide. The abuser may threaten to kill himself, the victim, the children, relatives, friends, or someone else. 2. Plans for homicide or suicide. The more detailed the abuser's plan and the more available the method, the greater the risk he will use deadly force. 3. Weapons. The abuser possesses weapons and has threatened to use them in the past against the victim, the children, or himself. If the abuser has a history of arson, fire should be considered a weapon. 4. Quote-unquote ownership of the victim. The abuser says things like, if I can't have you, no one can. Or, I would rather see you dead than have you divorce me. The abuser believes he is absolutely entitled to the obedience and loyalty of the victim. Okay, number 5. Centrality of victim to the abuser. The abuser idolizes the victim, depending heavily on him or her to organize and sustain the abuser's life, or the abuser isolates the victim from outside supports. 6. Separation violence. The abuser believes he is about to lose the victim. 7. Repeated calls to law enforcement. A history of violence is indicated by repeated police involvement. 8. Escalation of risk-taking. The abuser has begun to act without regard to legal or social consequences that previously constrained his violence. And 9. Hostage-taking. He is desperate enough to risk the life of innocent persons by taking hostages. There is a very serious likelihood of the situation turning deadly. Okay, now let's switch gears a little bit. Statistically speaking, women are abused more than men are abused, but sometimes men are battered and abused too. This often goes unreported. So let's talk about battered and abused men. Most of us recognize that men experience verbal and emotional abuse at the hands of women. Less well accepted or admitted is the fact of physical abuse. In our society, we think of women as the victims and men as the aggressors in physical abuse. This is a statistical reality. But the fact that women are more likely to be severely injured in domestic violence adds to the problem of recognizing male abuse. Nevertheless, it happens, and it is frequent. In fact, men are just as likely to be seriously injured when a woman becomes violent because women are more likely to use weapons in the course of an assault. If a male client indicates that his girlfriend or partner assaulted him, believe him. A man will find it harder to discuss his pain with you than will a woman, and even harder to admit to being a victim. It is easier to attribute an injury to a sports mishap or workplace accident than to admit to a doctor or police officer it resulted from domestic violence. So let's talk about some facts about battered and abused men. Number 1, fewer men report abuse. They are ashamed to report being abused by women. 2, healthcare and law enforcement professionals are more likely to accept alternative explanations of abuse from a man. They will believe other reasons for the presence of bruises and other signs of injury. 3, our justice system often takes the word of the woman above the word of the man in abuse cases. It is just more believable that the aggressor was a man, not the woman. 4, men are more likely to tolerate the pain of abuse than women. They, quote-unquote, grin and bear it more. And again, many men are ashamed to seek medical help for abuse. Number 5, unless a woman uses a weapon, she usually does not have the strength to inflict injury. Abused men are as likely as their female counterparts are to have low self-esteem. People can come to believe that they are somehow responsible for what happened. People cling to the hope that things will get better, that the woman he loves will quit when their relationship is better, adjusted, or the children get older and show more responsibility. These are all pretty much the same excuses women make for remaining with men who batter them. Okay, so now let me ask you a few questions. Are you abused? Does the person you love track you all of the time? Do they track all of your time? Do they constantly accuse you of being unfaithful? Do they discourage your relationships with family or friends? Do they prevent you from working or attending school? Or maybe do they criticize you for little things? Do they become angry easily when drinking or abusing drugs? Do they control all finances and force you to account for what you spend? Do they humiliate you in front of others? Destroy your personal property or items with sentimental value? Have they ever hit, punched, slapped, kicked, or bitten you or the children? Have they used or threatened to use a weapon against you? Have they threatened to hurt you or hurt the children? Have they forced you to have sex against your will? Okay. Now let's talk about some things someone can do to help him or herself. They can talk to a friend that he or she trusts. They can make safety arrangements such as leaving the relationship, finding a safe place to go, and changing the phone number and or locks. They can call a domestic violence hotline or shelter and talk to a worker, find out about their legal rights, or see a counselor. They can gain the support of witnesses when possible. They can take notes detailing dates, times, and what occurred, or call 911 when the abuser becomes physically abusive. So now let's do a self-assessment quiz to help you determine if you are being abused. You might be suffering from abuse even if you answered yes to just only a few of the questions. Okay, you may be becoming or already a victim of abuse if you feel like you have to walk on eggshells to keep him or her from getting angry and are frightened by his or her temper. You feel you can't live with him or her anymore. You stop seeing other friends or family or give up activities you enjoy because he or she doesn't like them. You are afraid to tell him or her your worries and feelings about the relationship. You're often compliant because you are afraid to hurt his or her feelings and have the urge to rescue him or her when he or she is troubled. Maybe you feel you are the only one who can help him or her and that you should try to reform him or her. Find yourself apologizing to yourself or others for your partner's behavior when you are treated badly. You stop expressing opinions that he or she doesn't agree with. You stay because you feel he or she will kill him or herself if you leave. You believe that his or her jealousy is a sign of love. You have been kicked, hit, shoved, or had things thrown at you by him or her when he or she was jealous or angry. You believe the critical things he or she says to make you feel bad about yourself. You believe that there is something wrong with you if you don't enjoy the sexual things that he or she makes you do. They believe in the traditional ideas of what a man and a woman should be and do, that the man makes the decisions and a woman pleases him. Citation, www.ilrctbay.com. Please like and subscribe. Thank you for your time.